Hello, New Zealand. This is episode number 46, believe it or not, without getting cancelled, of Political Playback. Good evening, Simon. How are you?
I think we've got to try harder if we haven't been cancelled yet.
Maybe we have, and we just don't realise it, and we're here thinking we're talking to people, and nobody's listening.
That's right. You think we're being shadow banned?
Yeah. Actually, I know someone who's listening. Here we go. Harrison, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Political Playback with your host this evening, Mr. McCoskrie and Mr. O'Connor. There we are. He is faithful as ever to introduce us. Look, a lot of topics to get through, a lot of little things to comment on, so straight into it. And video of the week. I just want to know if, actually, question for you. How often does the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition turn up at a function together at the same time?
It's not infrequent, and sorry to use the double negative, but for bigger community events, it's not unusual. They will be there together. So a lot of events at Parliament, they'll both be there. Often Indian Chinese events, because they're becoming obviously fairly large. And then think of the likes of Waitangi Day as well. So it's not unusual, but it's still noteworthy.
Okay, I did like this comment. Dean says, here we go, making New Zealand great again. Minizajiga. It's not really a MAGA, is it? It's Minizajiga. Anyway, video of the week, just on what you were talking about, is Luxon and Hipkins both turned up to a function, big function, run by the Indian Association. Interestingly enough, Simon, same venue as the large Forum on the Family coming up this time next week. So this is what happened. Both of them got up on stage to dance.
I can do a lot of things, but dancing's not my strong suit. But I want you to know, Chris Hipkins, an outstanding dancer. So if I'm going to embarrass myself, he's going to embarrass himself, and that'll all be fine, just amongst us friends. So come on, join us, Chris. It'd be great to have you up here.
Okay, so it's quite a nice look. I mean, on the stage together, bit of non-partisan politics.
We know that our Indian community contribute over $10 billion to the New Zealand economy every year, but your contribution's not just an economic one, it's also a social and cultural one as well. Indians bring a huge diversity to New Zealand's community, and it's great to be able to celebrate that.
Inspiring, because the Indian community in New Zealand, they work incredibly hard. They take on 2 or 3 jobs to get that first house or that first business, and we're just so proud of them. They're a great role model to so many New Zealanders. So it's always a great privilege to be here celebrating.
I just wondered, what's the possibility of getting both Hipkins and Luxon to the Forum on the Family at the same time, praising just the brilliant attendance of social conservatives?
I think, sadly, with those two, it's unlikely, but I think there's a higher chance of having you dance on stage on Thursday night, so that could be another reason for people to come along.
Yeah, okay. Look, the first topic is really about Luxon. Well, a couple of topics about Luxon. There seems to be a bit of pressure on him. Nicola Willis comes back from London, and there's suggestions that the people in London were saying, well, this could be the next Prime Minister. I mean, I don't know if they're implying that she's going to roll Luxon, or whether it's just, well, if Luxon retires, she would be next in line. Although, actually, is she second in line? Is she number 2 on the party list?
She is. Well, I'm pretty sure she is. Or maybe it's Jerry Brownlee, but he won't be because he's the Speaker. But she's effectively the party's number 2.
Okay, so I want to show this clip where they're on the tiles, which is the area where they all get interviewed before they go into the House, the debating chamber. And the cameras are all set up. Maybe you can just set this up for us, Simon. Is there a set? I mean, because you've obviously walked across the tiles for 12 years, and they've never, they've never come and got the cameras in your face for some reason. Why is that? Oh, no, okay, that wasn't the question. But is there always a set place that the Prime Minister goes to? Because the clip we're going to show is where Nicola Willis zones in on where the Prime Minister should be. So, what's the setup here?
So the tiles, just think of a big square in the middle of the Parliament, and there's a bridge that leads from the Beehive. And so the ministers have to walk that way. And so what will happen is they'll form a semicircle by the doors. And by convention, if not tradition, Bob, that is where the Prime Minister or the most senior person stands and interviews. and then the more juniors stand to the side. So the clip you're about to show sees that reversed, and the clip will explain it itself. But basically, there's a place of primacy where the Prime Minister stands and takes questions, and in this case, he alone, usually.
Okay. Quick question here, or loaded question. Would Nicola Willis have known that? I'm
Your
asking
sound,
you.
Bob. Your sound has almost disappeared.
Has it? Okay. I still seem to be coming through, so no, we seem to be okay. Okay, well, let me.
I can
play
hear
this
you
video.
again.
Okay, great. Let me play this video now that you got the wax out of your ears. Let me play this clip. The loaded question was, would Nicola Willis have known that?
Oh, absolutely. Look, Nicola is a very adept politician, and everything she does is very deliberate. It would be hard to not know. In fact, again, I would say it was quite a deliberate decision.
Okay, let's have a look at this.
Good morning. As you know, I've returned from a visit to London and New York.
They shift the mics.
We're very
over
welcoming
here.
this morning of the decision by the Electricity Authority to say that the large gentailers.
I see that I'm taking over the Prime Minister's microphones. However, I'm just going to proceed, and that was not intentional.
When Nicola was in London, she went to an event at the High Commission, and the New Zealand Society says there were whispers amongst the expat community that they were in the presence of the next Prime Minister. Will she be the next Prime Minister?
Again, look, I'm the Prime Minister. We've got a great work program. We've got a great set of ministers. We've got the right people on the right assignments doing excellent work. And I think we've got a fantastic group of ministers working as an awesome team. Getting this country turned around.
She took your stand this morning. She took your place this morning. Is that a sign of things to come?
That is just as to who gets here first. That's how it works here. All right, take care, guys. See ya. Take care.
And
I regret that I came and took his lectern, because what I was intending to do was I wanted to make myself available to journalists to talk about what I learnt on my visit last week, and so I thought it was important I come down early. I had presumed that he had already gone or was coming earlier, and so I am a little bit embarrassed that I took his microphone. Thank you. It's very embarrassing about taking his hands. Please don't write it up.
It's very embarrassing. Well, she sounds like she is apologetic and it was all a mistake, but do you think there's something afoot here?
It's untidy at the most generous. It's mischievous at another. I mean, it's always hard to read into another person's motives, but as I say, she's quite deliberate. I just don't think it's a mistake easily made. You just stand to the side. This is where the Prime Minister goes. Doesn't matter if you're early, you're late. And at the very moment the Prime Minister turns up, if you were there, you would step away. You wouldn't push them off to the side. And again, in the context of the questioning around Luxon's leadership at the moment, anything like this just keeps fueling the rumours. I mean, it's sort of ipso facto that we're even discussing this now. It makes him look a bit weaker, and in this case makes her look a bit stronger as she pushes herself back into the leadership narrative.
Okay, and my mic's fixed, isn't it? I think I fixed it during that little clip, so we're all sorted out.
You are
there we
coming
go.
through loud and clear. It's
Fantastic.
just like
Okay, well, let's just move on, because the question is, did Luxon not do himself any favours with this coalition of the willing? For him, it was coalition of the snoring, because he said that, well, basically he skipped this call where he was supposed to be online with Trump and with Ukraine and all the European leaders. It was, what was it? Was it 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning? So therefore his argument was, well, my officials can listen in, I don't need to be present. I mean, do you accept that argument?
it has a degree of truth to it. Personally, I think with all that's happening, and the Prime Minister has made a number of pronouncements around international events, be it Ukraine or, of course, Israel, Gaza, you'd expect to turn up, particularly when there's other high-powered leaders. So, yeah, I'd expected him to have turned up. I don't think it's a cardinal sin that he didn't. To be fair on the Prime Minister or any Prime Minister, Bob, it's an exceptionally busy and difficult job. But I think part of what's the problem here is certain statements he's made in the past are coming back to bite him. He's made a big thing of barely sleeping. I think he's claimed to sleep 3.5 hours a night. I'm up early, I'm up late. Sort of a bit of big noting, to be honest. And maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It doesn't really matter. But that's why the media are now after him. He's big noted in the past, and now there's a 1 o'clock meeting with Starmer from the UK, Macron from France, Zelensky and others, and yet you don't turn up. It's like, oh, really? So it's just a little salient lesson to the Prime Minister and any would-be politicians that what you say in the past gets remembered, and the media will find the inconsistencies very quickly.
Okay, I've found the clip. This is how he presented his defence of it.
Prime Minister, you were invited to the Coalition of the Willing virtual meeting but did not attend due to time zone differences. How is that acceptable considering Anthony Albanese attended?
Because we're in a different time zone, and it was about 1 a.m. in the morning this morning. And I've been to many of the Coalition of the Willing calls. I've actually been asked to speak at them as well in the past as well. We had officials representing me there, and importantly, I've had, even in the last few weeks, I've had direct conversations with, President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer as well and others.
Okay, and interestingly, he posted this tweet saying, and this was just after, so this is yesterday, obviously to quell the fire around this issue, where he was speaking to them again. So, I mean, you've been in the foreign affairs type area. Do you expect the Prime Minister to be there every time, or is it sometimes the representatives?
It can sometimes be representatives. I think the issue of whether he can or cannot be there, it always depends. He's quite right. It's 1 a.m. He's got a lot on. I suppose that the higher the world leaders, in other words, when it is the leaders of a lot of other countries, it's better that New Zealand's represented by their equivalent, in this case, the Prime Minister. But I think the wider issue here is he's said things in the past about effectively how he doesn't need much sleep. And so that might seem small, but it's, again, just an example. Don't say things which are going to get contradicted by your actions further down the line.
And that was a pretty significant meeting. I mean, it's funny. I'm finding it amusing watching the media because they're trying desperately not to give Trump any credit for what's being achieved here. I mean, how often do you get European leaders like that in the Oval Office? I mean, Biden was having his nap most days, so we never saw any action like this around Ukraine, around any of the discussions. So the media are trying to avoid this, but at the same time, they're saying that Luxon should show up. So it's interesting just watching some of their coverage, isn't it?
It is. I mean, twofold on that. Again, this is the media mischievously playing with, again, Luxon's previous comments, and hopefully he learns from that. Secondly, personally, I think it would have been good had he attended, particularly with all that is happening at the moment for New Zealand to be, represented from the top. And that's no disrespect to the officials. But I will just make, if I might, a comment on what media are doing around the Trump thing. Because, what's the alternative? I know a lot of people are dishing on Trump and what he is and is not doing, but he's trying something. And I don't know about you, Bob, I don't know how the media and other commentators reconcile their desire for peace in Ukraine. And yet, when, in this case, the American administration's trying, they just keep attacking it. I mean, what else are they going to do? And as I say, remarkable photos of all those guys sitting around the Oval Office. It's something at the very least.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. And fourth topic is, interesting just around this issue of what Luxon said about Benjamin Netanyahu and let's play what he said first, and then let's just check the response.
I think what's happening in Gaza is utterly appalling. I think Netanyahu has gone way too far. I think he has lost the plot, and I think that what we're seeing overnight with the attack on Gaza City is utterly unacceptable, and that's.
Okay, so that's interesting. He said that, and then Winston Peters has shown up and given his response, which is interesting.
Last week you wouldn't say whether you agreed with Prime Minister Luxon that Benjamin Netanyahu had lost the plot. Have you come to an opinion yet?
It's not language I use, and so you have to ask him.
Do you think it's unhelpful having the country's leader use that language?
You can make your own opinion up. Ask the right guy. You're not asking me because I didn't say it.
Did you call him up and say, what were you thinking?
No, I'm not taking your advice either on how to conduct my affairs when it comes to running this coalition.
Your advice. I was just
I'm the most experienced guy that you've met on this matter.
That's why I'm asking you about this.
No,
Call him up.
you made a suggestion that I should do something. That was the inference of your question. That's it.
Did the Prime Minister show a lack of experience in making those calls?
Next question.
Next question. I mean, I find this interesting because remember it was Seymour that got in trouble for overstepping the mark with the UN and the response. And now you've got Seymour and Peters calling out the Prime Minister almost for overstepping the mark with this foreign affairs issue. So this is interesting to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll use the words I mentioned earlier when you were talking about Willis and Luxon. It's untidy and it's mischievous. Look, these guys are welcome to have their opinions, just as Luxon, felt that he wanted to say what he did about Netanyahu. I mean, he seems to, by the way, forget it wouldn't matter who was in charge in Israel. I think the conduct of the campaign would be pretty much the same. But that aside, these are the two leaders, obviously, of his coalition partners, more than happy just to stir. And so in terms of the coalition, as I say, it's untidy. It is still a little bit mischievous. It just seems to me, Bob, that there's just this constant feeding of that little fire to keep the discussion around Luxon's leadership going. It must be intensely frustrating for both Luxon and the National Party, but it just keeps being fueled.
Yeah. Can I I missed something I wanted to ask you just about Nicola Willis, because she said in this interview when the interest rates were dropped a couple of days ago, she talked about the merchants of misery. And this was about people who are basically complaining about the economy and also families who are concerned about costs of living, the cost of butter, which seems to be the in thing to talk about at the moment. I actually tweeted that if National are going to put up Nicola Willis as the next leader, I think they may do worse than they are under Luxon, because I'm not sure Nicola Willis is winning the room, especially as she spends at the same rate that Grant Robertson was budgeting to spend, and as things in the economy still don't look too good. So I'm not sure she's the best candidate for them to be putting up at the moment, because she's having difficulties with her own portfolio, let alone prime ministership. What do you think about that?
Well, the first thing is I don't think it's ever good to be calling Kiwis or people who critique you merchants of misery. There are a lot of families out there doing it really tough at the moment. Yeah. And, I would argue, as I'm sure she would, that, this government's inherited a huge mess courtesy of Jacinda Ardern and Grant Robertson. And I really want to underline that's what I truly and firmly believe, and I think the evidence is on our side. This government's picked up a massive mess. But, you don't say to people who are struggling that they're merchants of misery. Again, Kiwis are doing it really tough. And there's a lot of grumpiness out there, and it reflects in the polls. But it is up to this government to make some tough decisions. And, easy for me to sit here, Bob, but I would be saying if I was in caucus that, tough financial decisions, spending cuts have to be made. At the end of the day, despite what National is saying, the coalition government are saying, they're doing the opposite. Debt is going up. Government spending is going up. They haven't actually sacked all that many public servants. And apologies to public servants who are watching. We're not going after you personally, but National said they would dial it back. They haven't. And at day's end, we are living well beyond our means. And I'm sorry I've said this before, but it's going to be your kids, my stepkids, and their kids, which are going to be paying off the decisions of now. So we need strong leadership, both by Willis and Luxon and the rest of the coalition, to actually turn things around economically.
Yeah. Okay. Your voting record was superb in Parliament, and one thing you voted against was euthanasia, and it's because you argued that, in fact, it's not the best option. Let's put the money into palliative care. But there was a disturbing story that Stuff actually highlighted. Isaac Davison, who used to be with the New Zealand Herald and has gone to Stuff, but he has been very good in this particular area of calling out the lack of accountability. And there was a story about a complaint has been made. The doctor has been referred to the medical council because there's concerns that the patient that was having euthanasia wasn't sedated properly. So in other words, is giving life-ending drugs and is unable to respond to give any response. Now, Actually, before we talk about your Family Matters interview, which people need to watch now that we've had this story, do you want to just comment on this particular story first?
Well, good on Isaac covering this, as you say. He's now with stuff which even though I read the article, I didn't pick up until you pointed out. So, so kudos to him, actually. He's been following the euthanasia question, almost the only journalist that is. I mean, this story, we've had a hint of it for a while, because I think there's almost, 3 cases that are under quite serious investigation. So this is all allegation at the moment, but it is worrying that someone has been terminated without correct sedation. And you're about to hear, Bob, with the clip you're going to play. Well, you've heard it, but those listening are going to hear. I'm just trying to think how to put this quickly and delicately. Sedatives are only part of the drug cocktail that you're given. The other that you're given are what they call neuromuscular blockers. They basically paralyze a person. And the horrid part, and you're going to hear it from this doctor in a moment, that in this case that stuff's put up, it's most likely the person was given neuromuscular blockers, so they can't talk, they can't blink, they can't do anything. And if they were not properly sedated, they would have been conscious. They would have been feeling pain, most likely, and no ability, and I'm not exaggerating here, no ability to communicate that whatsoever. So anyway, chilling to think about it, but Sharon's much more articulate than me.
Okay, Rachel on our team, she's put together this short excerpt from your interview, so let's just have a watch.
Propofol is the general anesthetic most often used in Canada. Propofol is the general anesthetic most often used in Canada. And then also a neuromuscular blocker or a paralyzing agent, which causes the person not to be able to move any voluntary muscles, so they can't move their arms or legs, they can't breathe, they can't speak, they can't even blink. Propofol has a very quick onset of action, but it also will wear off very quickly. Neuromuscular blockers are given, they cause someone to be paralyzed. And the reason why they said for prison executions, why they use this is because when someone is given just a large overdose of anesthetic, it will cause them to stop breathing and become hypoxic. So if the person becomes hypoxic, they could have seizures, they may have unusual respiratory patterns, gasping, things that could be difficult to watch. So they didn't want the people injecting these drugs to see them causing these things in prisoners. So therefore, if the neuromuscular blocker agents are given, the person is paralyzed and you can't see any seizures, you can't see the gasping, you can't see anything. So the concern in Canada when you give these drugs is if you look at the time to death, it ranges from 1 minute to over 2 hours. So my concern is what happens for those patients. First of all, 1 minute is impossible. It takes at least 2 minutes that you're going to wait to ensure that the heart has stopped before you can pronounce someone dead. Some people would say you need to wait 5 or 10 minutes to make sure there's not auto-resuscitation. So the idea that someone can die in 1 minute is not possible. And then the other extreme, 2 hours, I am concerned that someone's propofol, their anesthetic, has worn off and they are paralyzed and they're unable to speak, they're unable to move, they're unable to say, I can feel everything, I want to breathe, but I can't breathe. So they may be dying in agony, but the protocols are to prevent them from moving so that there aren't any uncomfortable like seizures or uncomfortable looking motions for the families to witness. And yet we have no idea what's going on in the heads of those patients who are taking that long to die.
Oh boy. I mean, people need to watch that full interview. I met Sharon in Indianapolis at the SoConCon, the Social Conservative Conference, and then you did this interview with her and really drew out this key information. Did this come up during the debate on euthanasia? Because you were on the select committee.
It did, because it was something I was aware of. I'm no medical person, but I know enough about the drugs which are used. And by the way, we're not allowed to say what they are in New Zealand for somewhat good reasons. I don't want people trying to locate them and copycat. But yes, it's not new information. It was certainly part of the debate. It was certainly part of what we discussed in the select committee. Just quickly too, Sharon is now retired, but she is a paediatric anaesthetist and worked in critical care. So she's not just a doctor opining in general, she is a specialist and has been a specialist in this area. And so it was really good to hear from her, although incredibly challenging. But one of the key points amongst many, Bob, and it's what we've often said around euthanasia in general, so much is done to keep the family happy. So in this case with the lethal drugs, particularly the neuromuscular blockers, it's there to make sure the family feel happy. They just see someone who's peaceful. But as she points out, the propofol, the anesthetic, or the sedation, it's all the same, may not be working. We better not over-egg this either. We're not saying this happens in all and every case, but even one would just be horrific. And the other, of course, too, is so many times euthanasia is done because the family is suffering. They project their heartache at seeing a loved one dying, that they want it to end. It's the family more often than not as they projecting onto the patient. So, yeah, it was a great talk, even though difficult and challenging. I'd certainly encourage people to jump onto Family First's page, our YouTube page, where some of you will be watching this, or over to our website.
And the fact that we have this one reported shows that, yes, it may not happen every time, but there is concerns about it, and people should be made aware of it. So it's the...
Well, again, if it was incorrect sedation, there will be no way that the patient could communicate that, because they will have been dosed with the neuromuscular blockers. There'll be some vital signs which a doctor may be able to monitor to see, hold on, something's happening. But again, it's just chilling to ponder it. But this is the reality of euthanasia. It's something that, I've spoken about a lot and not afraid to, because actually people need to understand what they support. And my challenge to those here watching and listening and going, well, it's still about my choice. Begin to understand what the choice actually involved. It's not just something conceptual. It's something very specific. And Sharon talks too, Bob, about some of the drugs which they ingest burn the throat on the way down. I mean, these are toxic drugs. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. They're there to kill you.
Yeah, okay. Look, I was just looking at a comment there, and Matt said, are you able to upload that interview to Spotify? And I was just finding the little advertisement, and it's this one. You can read all our content. You can watch it. You can also read it, because we're putting the transcripts on our website, but you can listen. We are on Spotify. So in response to your question, Matt, it's already there on Spotify. Just go to our website, familyfirst.nz, and you'll see a link up the top. Watch, read, and listen. Click on listen, and all the Spotify is there. So we aim to please. So there we are. There's another satisfied customer. Speaking of satisfied customers, here we go. Here's the image of the day. Helen Clark has told the media. The media love talking to Helen Clark for some reason.
We're losing your sound again, Bob.
Oh, are you? There we are. There we are. We're back.
Oh.
It's got a mind of its own.
Well, you put up that picture. Even the microphone's freaked out.
It's almost like my wife is controlling the microphone and saying, "Oh, shut up, Bob." Helen Clark, just tell me. Oh, you're going to have to do all the talking.
I can see that. Poor old Bob, as we're having technical problems here. Everyone's going to be keen to hear Bob's voice, and you've got mine.
Here we go.
I'm afraid, people, we're losing Bob. I'm not sure. We're not in the same studio, but we're getting some work going here. As Bob's sorting it, and he can jump back in and interrupt me. He's talking about comments which Helen Clark made recently around Jacinda and the usual thing that we've talked about before, which is women MPs in particular, like Tory Whanau and others,
I think I'm back.
get a much, much harder life. There he is. He's back, people.
I think I'm back. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a mind of its own tonight. But that was a great introduction, Simon. You actually did better than I would have. But yeah, look, the question I had, so Helen Clark is saying that basically female MPs are getting a hard time, but haven't they talked to Andrea Vance from Stuff? Because she says it's okay to call female MPs the C word. Remember, we made that complaint about it. And it's kind of like Helen Clark is saying, well, the whole reason Jacinda had a hard time and had to leave politics is because people were nasty to her. But what they failed to acknowledge, and I've just circled it in red in the black circle, is this is the popularity of Jacinda from 2020 to when she resigned, and it just plummeted. That's not because people were nasty to her. People didn't like her politics, but Helen doesn't seem to want to acknowledge that, does she?
No, well, what she's trying to do is conflate two dynamics here and then try to create a victim narrative. You've seen it around Tory Whanau. You've certainly seen it around Jacinda and others. I've seen it even here in Auckland around some of the council elections, different candidates trying to paint themselves as victims, which arguably then is to try and make people sympathetic, which you would be. If someone's being bullied or harassed, you feel sympathy. And in the political realm, it's a great tactic for you to feel sympathy and avoid the policy side of things. And at day's end, yep, there's a lot of abuse of politicians in general, and it is getting much, much worse. I think, as we've discussed before, there is certainly a misogynistic element as well, but it's not just to women. Men get it badly as well. I mentioned myself, I don't intend to go into details, but as I said before, I don't go running off to the press every 5 seconds when I get a death threat or a rape threat or abuse, whereas you'll find the likes of, well, in this case, Helen Clark and others, very quick to make sure everyone knows they're a victim. But she's conflating, as I said at the start, because actually Jacinda's not liked in this country because of what she did. In the latter part of COVID, the forced mandates destroyed the economy. You name it. That is why people are angry. Now, the last thing I will say on that one, I mean, obviously there's more questions for you, but what I'm saying is, you know, there's no excuse for abuse. If people have a problem with her, I would say be constructive. But for Helen to say it's because she's a woman ignores the facts of what Jacinda or Tory Whanau in Wellington and other examples have chosen to do. It's a policy issue first and foremost.
Okay, and somebody said that when my volume was going off, they said the good thing is that the transcript is available for interviews on our website, and that is a new feature that we've got. You can actually read the interview that Simon has done, or you can read my blog. And so when my microphone goes off, that's okay. Just read the transcript and you'll sort it out anyway. But I did just want to comment because they talk about terrible attitude towards female MPs, but there's this new thing that's available online, and it's called Beat the Bish, and it's Bishop. What's his first name?
Chris.
Chris, thank you. Chris Bishop. And you go onto this website called Beat the Bish, and this is me just going through the game, and you pick your identity: an environmentalist, activity supporter, cyclist, homeowner. So I picked homeowner. Actually, I couldn't figure out what I was doing, but these heads of Chris Bishop go towards it, and you're supposed to fire at it. I couldn't actually figure out what the game was, so I got bished. So I went back, picked my identity. I decided to be a cyclist. And here we go. I fire at Chris Bishop's head. Boom. And then I fire at his head. Boom. Now, would we be able to do a game like this for Jacinda or for Tory Whanau or any other female MP? I mean, why is it okay for Chris Bishop but not for other MPs?
Because it's all about hypocrisy. I mean, that is just terrible. It's facilitating and encouraging violence. But this is the hypocrisy, particularly of the progressives or the woke or the left or whatever you want to call them. They will, like Helen Clark, be the first to decry against their side, in this case, misogyny. But they won't seem to have a problem with, games like that. They would say, oh, well, it's just a parody. And you mentioned Andrea Vance earlier, again, would complain about the treatment of women, but then herself abuse women. So it's this constant hypocrisy or a lack of consistency that you see from those who call themselves progressives. And more often than not, they're actually the very thing they accuse others of. And I think that's a really important point for people to understand, that you don't have to agree with me, but more often than not, those who talk a big game around bullying or anti-violence and so forth are actually a big cause of the problems. And again, that video game, and thanks for drawing it to my attention, is just utterly disgraceful. It's encouraging violence against, in this case, a male politician. It's just wrong.
Well, do you think it's a bit of, people may say, look, it's just a bit of fun. They're doing it as a fundraiser. It's kind of tongue in cheek, and it's just stupid and puerile. But the point that we're really making is that if they had done it against a female MP, they'd be hell to pay and the media would be all over it. And it's kind of that hypocrisy of the media, isn't it? I mean, I always say that the left have certain principles, and if you don't like them, they have some others. And it seems like it's the case here.
Yeah, and if you don't agree with those principles, they'll put you into struggle sessions until you do. No, well, that's the double standards of the media. And, rightly, if this was a game targeting a female minister or MP, particularly on the left wing, the media would be in there like Flynn. They would be hunting down the creator. They'd be chasing them down the street. And I'd say somewhat rightly. I mean, I think you can do parody and satire without facilitating violence, but there's a double standard. And we've seen it multiple times. And it's just good that we're calling that out here. We talked about it before we came on air. Think about, was it breakfast, shooting the Trump doll, again, just before he himself got shot. Some would say, oh, it's just fun. But actually, you cannot say we're against violence or we're for social cohesion while you're also facilitating violent actions, be it through games, silly shooting of trolls, or the Māori Party with its very violent signage. It's got to be consistent.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. I thought this was pretty pathetic media, actually. Back to Chris Bishop, actually, because
Chris Bishop.
What they did was that they found that he was, well, actually, it's confession time, Simon. They found that Chris Bishop, somebody took a photo of Chris Bishop having a little nap in his car. And so Lloyd Burr from 3 News thought, oh, well, we need to ask him about that. Chris Bishop, to his credit, just said, yep, I was having a nap. This must be an expectation on, this is pure old dumb reporting that this is even a story. Apparently politicians can't have naps, but it is the kind of expectation, Simon, that you're not supposed to sleep. You're supposed to be up at 1 a.m. for the Coalition of the Willing. You're supposed to be working constant hours, and, sleep is not for politicians. That expectation must be on politicians anyway, isn't it?
It is. Look, couple of things to say. So firstly, Chris, as in Bishop, handled it really well. I think it was a picture someone took about 4 years ago. So that was before he was a minister. And if people do go to the Stuff site and see the video, it's actually a masterclass in answering. And, kudos to Chris on that. As he points out, he was waiting for a flight and took a quick kip. Personally,
so confession time, Simon. Have you ever done that in your electric car? Electorate, not electric, electorate.
No is the short answer. I don't think I'd be able to fall asleep in my car anyway. So no, I haven't. Never fell asleep in the house either. But to the defence of all MPs, it's an exceptionally exhausting job. And I don't say that for any sympathies. Those of us who go into politics and those that remain should know what they're in for. But political life is intense, exceptionally long hours most days. And certainly as a minister, even longer. Just as an example, a cabinet minister will probably spend most of Sunday reading through their cabinet papers on top of everything else. So MPs do exceptionally long hours, lots of travel, and it's unrelenting. And then on top of that, you've got all the machinations, the toxicity of the place, the gossip, the rumour. Put a foot wrong, the media are chasing you. It's incredibly intense. So it's not unreasonable that an MP might want a short nap.
Okay, let's just check. Rainish says all politicians work 16 hours a day, I think. Is that correct?
You could on some of them. it's not unusual, not every day, but it wouldn't be unusual to be up sort of 4:35 to make sure you're at the 6:30, 7 o'clock breakfast event that you're a speaker at. Then you're off to electorate events, and then you might be flying down to Wellington that evening. Then you're doing your correspondence till late at night. Certainly when you're in Parliament, you can be in select committee from 8 a.m. and you're still in Parliament physically till 10 p.m. You haven't even got outside, and that's day after day. So it is long days. I mean, it wouldn't be unusual for hardworking MPs to be doing 70 to 80 hours a week.
Yeah. Edie says, yet they say pull over and have a nap if you're driving and tired. Well, he was waiting for a flight, so I don't think it's a big issue. Simply Green says, sounds like he was just working hard. He needed a nap. Interesting way to present it. I mean, yeah, it's a play on words, but it just seems a really dumb sort of story to worry about. All right, let's move on. And our good friend Trevor Mallard, golly, I did have a summary. I might have to grab it while you're talking. But Trevor Mallard has finished up as the Irish ambassador. And Winston Peters was very pleased about that. Now, there's no love lost between Winston Peters and Trevor Mallard by the sound of it. Let's just have a listen to what Winston says, and then I'll get your take on this, because there's a bigger issue about, which Winston raises in this clip, is about, is it good for MPs to become ambassadors as kind of staying on the gravy train? What do they call it? Not jobs for the boys. There's another term that I've heard where the government gives cushy jobs to their mates.
Sinecures.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, let's hear what Winston says. He basically argues that MPs should not be ambassadors, and Jacinda made a wrong appointment.
Any comment on the outgoing Irish ambassador, Trevor Mallard?
You know that famous song from the Seekers?
I'm not
The
familiar.
Carnival's Over. I have spent my career ensuring that when we have diplomats, they are trained, they're experienced, and it should not be a job for the boys or the girls out of politics. I've opposed it in all my career, and soon I'll have corrected for the third time.
Did you advance his exit at all, or was it the end of a term?
He's coming home, and he's coming home early.
Why do you call it a carnival? Why do you call it a carnival?
Well, it's a circus where instead of looking at the national interest, you've got people like Jacinda Ardern appointing politicians to important jobs, and that should not be happening.
Is he coming home early? Is he coming home early by choice, or because you've chosen for him?
Look, that's an operational matter, and he's coming home early.
Do you have a reason for that?
Yes, I do.
If it was a carnival, why was he in office for nearly 2 years while you're being the Prime Minister?
No, but I haven't been the Foreign Minister.
Okay, there's enough of that. Look, it raises a couple of issues, because it's not only Trevor Mallard, it was also Phil Goff as well, who Winston had to bring home as well after that, fairly blunt statement about Trump, which is why the media goes to Goff a lot lately, I notice, and print all his opinion pieces, but not yours, Simon. That's another story. But MPs to ambassadors, my understanding was that was quite a good fit, because politicians sort of had an idea of foreign relationships, could sort of deal with the media, could speak politically. So that was a good appointment. What would you say on that?
It depends on the politician, and it depends on the reason for the appointment. So I'm not quite in agreement with Winston. I don't think there should be a ban on former MPs being ambassadors. But at the same time, I don't think it should just be a matter of expectation. There have been some very good ambassadors or high commissioners who are former members of Parliament. I mean, Annette King, a senior Labour MP, I think remains as our High Commissioner to Australia. And, she's someone I would rate. Phil Goff was doing well until basically he got Trump derangement syndrome. But even a professional can put their foot in it. But I think where the problem comes in, and Mallard's a good example of this, and I used the word earlier, sinecure. These are dished out, often to troubled MPs or ministers, to get them out of the building. So they're used not quite as a bribe, Bob, but it's a way to get them out. And I wouldn't be surprised if, the current coalition government, even with Winston in control, will be looking at some of their aged, be it literally by age or by time in the parliament, to go, hey, we want you to leave. And obviously, very hard to force an MP to leave, particularly if they have an electorate seat, to say, look, we'll give you this cushy little job, and out you go. I mean, Maurice Williamson was an example during the Key time. That's why he became the Consul General in Los Angeles. It was a way to get him out. Trevor Mallard would have been the same. You just get him out. And that's not good for New Zealand. But returning to where you started, if MPs have been there a while, they do know how to engage diplomatically. They're not completely out of their depth.
Okay, but Trevor Mallard, I mean, he's got a bit of a reputation. I mean, he's had biff with Tau Henare in Parliament. There was also the allegations of rape within Parliament that ended up being false. There was the removing of Jesus from the opening prayer. There was
how we handled the protests.
The handle of the protesters. I think that's when he really lost a lot of support. And also, he trespassed Winston Peters to that protest, didn't he? So there's no love lost there, and Trevor Mallard isn't exactly, even within Parliament, he doesn't seem to be much of a favourite, is he?
Oh, no, look, I mean, Winston's got no time for him. Winston will have been waiting for any opportunity to remove him, just as he did when Gough put a foot wrong, and we talked about that on Political Playback a few months ago. I mean, Trevor, at the end of the day, was made Speaker to get him out of Jacinda's hair. She didn't want him as a minister, stirring away, but being the Speaker sort of gives you a position and a good pay packet, but you're sort of ring-fenced and isolated. And then it was a chance to just get him out of the Parliament altogether, because actually, from what you just described, how he was handling things, very poorly, and there was growing anger in the Parliament across the MPs. So again, it was a sinecure, it was a payoff, right, off you go. And that's not ideal. In fact, the other little curio is they had to do quite a lot of negotiations with the Irish because Mallard, I think, has a criminal record because of his behaviours. He wouldn't pass their good character test or something to get the necessary visas. They managed to get through that, but yeah, fascinating.
Okay. Right. We've got about 5 minutes to get through a whole lot of very quick topics, so we're going to go for it. Firstly, Richard Prebble says that Labor should just keep quiet, let the government put their shoot themselves in the foot, and Labor should just sit off to the side and they've got a better chance of being elected. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I do actually. And, I think Hipkins, no matter what you think of him, his current strategy is actually quite good, which is don't say much. He should probably avoid dancing on stages like Luxon as well. But they're not releasing any policy. It means that National's got nothing to attack them on. Yeah. And so, I think Prebble's right in this regard.
Okay, there's concerns that the alcohol industry driving government policy on this. The Ministry of Health were forced to release these documents just showing that the alcohol industry has been affecting advertising around fetal alcohol syndrome, has been influencing the opening of bottle stores, which I think we talked about last week or the week before. I mean, the other issue that I was just thinking here, Simon, is with the Ministry of Health, if they're being lobbied by the alcohol industry and there is proof, and credit to Guy and Espiner who's on a real campaign on this particular issue, but if people are lobbying the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Health are kowtowing to the industry, when we're talking about puberty blockers and transing of children with gender dysphoria, how much is the Ministry of Health kowtowing to lobbyists in that area as well, which is, what we're trying to speak up against. So, I mean, how much does the Ministry of Health actually listen to the lobbyists and how much do they listen to the science?
Great question. The sort of answer, unfortunately, is how long is a piece of string? Because it really depends on the topic and who the officials are. So starting with, say, the puberty blockers, to me, and I suspect it's your view too, is that the ministry is quite captured in this regard around the ideology of transgenderism. In fact, we've just released something onto the website today around some Finnish research, which is pointing out scientifically, medically, that actually transitioning children is not working. It's just not working for a whole number of reasons. The primary one being that people presenting with gender dysphoria almost always have a complex set of mental health issues, which are actually the cause. In other words, treat the mental health issues, not mutilate the child. But our ministry is quite captured, which is why they've also tried to push the Cass report and that away. In terms of the alcohol lobbying, look, I want to see fewer issues related to alcohol in this country, but I will say I don't want to start banning lobbyists. I think people are allowed to advocate to MPs, to ministers, and into ministries like the Ministry of Health, whether they are for alcohol, they're against alcohol, whether they're a professional lobby group, whether it's just Bob and Mary on the street. So I'm not implying that was in your question, but I think we've got to be very careful. And, you know, the flip side is you will have all the pro-health advocates pushing equally as hard into the Ministry of Health. So what it really becomes is, have you got the right people in the ministry actually doing the policy work, and then the right politicians to make the final decision? Because I can tell you, I've been lobbied by all sorts of people, professional otherwise, on all sorts of issues. And at one level, it gives you information, but you're still an individual who can process it. But I will say on this one, I am concerned at what does seem to be quite a high level of influence for reasons I can't fully appreciate or understand.
Yeah, and I think one of the ironies is that in the Ministry of Health, Guy Espiner has identified that one of the key Ministry of Health people that may be going a bit soft on alcohol regulation used to be the boss of the New Zealand Drug Foundation and was promoting the yes vote to legalise cannabis. So it's kind of like, that's kind of a quirky thing that I just noticed off to the side. Two other quick ones. Just name suppression for serious case of so many files, almost 12,000 objectionable files, including child sexual abuse material. This name suppression thing is an issue, isn't it? Because it's not being used to protect the victim. It seems to be being used to protect the perpetrator as well.
Absolutely. This just seems wrong. And I think suppression's been used far too often and frequently. I mean, part of justice is that you are publicly held to account for the decisions you've made. It's in many ways, it is trying to create a stigma or a shame. I mean, it's one of the reasons to try and stop people doing what they're doing is going, gosh, I don't want my name to be in public, therefore I will not do whatever the act is. This one in particular is quite shocking by the nature of the scale of what's involved, and then the content, exceptionally sickening and disturbing. And the fact that peers, that because they're wealthy and their business might be affected, well, I'm sorry to be blunt, who gives a damn? That's the consequences of your actions. The only, that's a bit too black and white. Most of the time where suppression of name makes sense is when it is, as you mentioned at the start, protecting the victims. If releasing someone's name, so if it was a parent who would abuse their child, by releasing the parent's name would expose the child. There you can understand why suppression orders might be used. But in this case, unless we're missing something, it's an absolute shocker, including two now, Bob. You've sort of got vigilantes running around trying to work out who it is and slandering people left, right and centre.
Okay, and Dumbo of the Week goes to Wellington City Council. They voted down an independent review of a massive blowout, $85 million of sludge treatment plant. But at the same time, they passed this. They stood on the side of Hamas and said, we're not going to invest in anything to do with the Israeli government. Is this just a case of how dumb the Wellington City Council is?
Well, I think so. I mean, for a whole number of levels. I mean, look, first and foremost, certain regimes in the 1930s and 40s did this too. You know, went and identified Jewish and Israeli shops and businesses and refused to engage with them. While at the same time, the Tory whānaus and that of the world would say, oh no, other despotic regimes that they perceive, we just need to talk and dialogue with them. Whereas, you know, Israel is a fully functioning democracy that we have a relationship with. Secondly, why is a council needing to bother itself with this? If you're like me and you, Bob, you're paying your rates and you wonder why they're so high. It's because the Tory whānaus and the Wellington councils of the world spend all the time blathering on about this stuff and not, like you say, focusing on the water treatment plants, all the footpaths, all the roads. They're just too busy chatting about these things, and it's ridiculous. And the BDS, or the boycott divestment system, BDS that they call it, is just totally wrong and inappropriate. It's basically anti-Semitic, it's racist, it's targeting particular groups of people. I just think it's just totally wrong.
Did they also do it with Russia and Iran and other groups?
So with Russia, we have sanctions deliberately targeted at them. So the council doesn't need to make any decision there. But, the obvious example to me, at least, is China. Tory whānau doesn't seem to say anything about Falun Gong practitioners who have forced organ harvesting, or the million Muslim Uyghurs in concentration camps, or house Christians who are arrested daily. Tory whānau has nothing to say about that. In fact, she's probably more than happy to go on junkets to China and buy all sorts of Chinese goods, and may even have Temu on her phone. So it's this hypocrisy and double standard that just seems to exist. But when it comes to Jews, they get very excitable. And TikTok, yeah, that's right. Harvesting all information. But there is just
some encouragement. Okay. Dennis says, Simon, it's okay to be blunt. So there we go. Well done. Look, we are just about out of time, and we won't be here next Thursday night because we will, at this time next week, be starting the Forum on the Family. And the registration's closed Sunday night, and we've just about got a full house. So you need to register, forumonthefamily.nz. Amazing lineup of speakers. Simon, I know you're looking after Amanda next week because she's speaking about the euthanasia thing and going to be involved in a number of groups just to raise that issue and what's been going on in Canada. But boy, there's just a great lineup. And of course, Kirralie Smith, who, have you done an interview with Kirralie, or has it just been me?
No, it was me. I did one a couple of months ago. You keep me busy. Yeah, of course I do. Well, I don't want you sleeping in your car. So anyway, that. Oh, we've lost you at the very end, Bob. Okay. While he sorts himself out, we want you to come. You've got till Sunday. It's staying on. We're going to sign off before it absolutely goes. Thanks for watching. We won't be here next week. We'll be here the week after. Before Mike goes off, thanks, Simon. Have a great night.